Fex was walking along with the top platform slowly. His usual neatly swept-back black hair was now a complete mess. The stress of everything was getting to him, and he felt like pulling his hair out. It more than felt like it. There were times while walking when he had pulled out small parts of his hair from his head. Nothing noticeable, but he didn't even realize he had been doing it. He needed everything to go perfectly and still felt relieved that his sister had agreed into letting him do everything on his own. The only problem was that he had a time limit. He needed to finish everything by tonight, to pull everything off that he had planned. He needed some help. He couldn't do this alone. Eventually, Fex arrived at the small little coffee shop where the others were sitting outside. It was an hour later than they had planned, but it was still only 7 p.m., plenty of time for the rest of the evening. Sunrise was the time limit. "Hey, is everything okay with you?" Quinn asked, seeing the mess that Fex's hair was in. He had been acting strange all day, and now his appearance was on top of this. Something must have been wrong, and now with the event over, he could ask. With an awkward smile, Fex approached Quinn and started to whisper in his ear. "Do you mind if you and I can talk for private for a second? I have something important I want to talk to you about," Fex whispered. Hearing this, Quinn's heart started to beat, and slight butterflies were felt in his stomach. If it was something that Fex only wanted him to hear about, then it had to be something to do with vampire business. The two boys left the group at the table and walked off slightly to the side. There was no one around them to listen in on their conversation, and they could now talk freely. "So what is it?" Quinn asked. "Did something happen?" Fex went to fix his hair up and had a nervous look on his face. He never was a good liar, and today he had to put the performance of his life on. The only problem was he had to do it more than once. "Quinn, you're going to hate me for this." Fex placed his hand on top of Quinn's shoulder and looked to the floor before lifting his head and looking Quinn in the eye. "This was it? Have the vampires come to get Fex? Do the military know about me? What is it?" Quinn thought nervously. His palms were now sweating, and he just wanted Fex to blurt it out as the tension was killing him. "I'm in love with Layla." "What?" Quinn shouted out so loud that the others at the table could hear. It was something he had never expected out of all the possibilities. "Layla? I mean... Quinn started to stutter his words, he was so surprised. "I thought you had a thing for Erin," Quinn said. "Erin? No, that was different. She was a skillful one like a diamond, but there were no feelings," he replied as he grasped his hands and pulled them in towards his heart. He was trying to make it seem as if this was a painful conversation for him to have. "With Layla, it's true love. I know you two are quite close, and I didn't know whether you liked her either, but the thing is, I don't know how much longer I can stay here, and before I go, I want her to at least know my feelings." Fex then turned around so Quinn couldn't see his face. He wanted to make this as dramatic as possible for him. There was always the chance that Quinn might see through his act. "I know nothing can ever happen between her, you see, and me, but I want her to at least know, and I wanted you to know before I asked her, because you're my blood brother, right?" Suddenly everything was starting to make sense to Quinn. No wonder he had been acting so strangely for the whole day. A confession was always a big deal. With Layla, Quinn didn't feel like he had any special feelings for her. He did feel protective of her, but didn't know whether or not it was beyond a friendship. Even if he did like her, Fex was so passionate right now he could never deny him this chance. But what did he know was Fex was right. The two of them were blood brothers. "Go ahead," Quinn said. "Make sure you tell her exactly how you feel." After hearing those words, Fex's eyes lit up as he turned back around. "That's great," he said as he started to push Quinn in the direction of the hotel. "Just head home and I'll get the others to do the same. I plan to do it as soon as possible." "You mean now?" "Yes, now, just go," he said as he gave another small shove. With that, Quinn walked back to the hotel room with a little smile on his face. It would be nice if two of his friends became an item, but it was a shame if Fex did have to go back. "Good luck, brother," Quinn thought as he returned to his hotel room. Seeing Quinn walk off like that, the others who were at the coffee table were wondering just what was going on. The two of them seemed to be so dramatic about something and were a little worried that Quinn had disappeared off somewhere. Still, that quickly changed when they saw Fex walking towards them. He didn't have a face of joy or laughter like he did when talking to Quinn. This was the face of business. With his two hands, he swept back his hair and sat down in one of the seats that were placed around the table, and the aura that was coming off him was suffocating them. It quickly reminded them that Fex was not a human, nor was he a human that had been turned into a vampire, but he was a true vampire. Now that Quinn is gone, I have something important to say to you all. I usually joke around, but this time I'm serious. You may have many questions, but I urge you all to listen and hear me out to the end." Fex paused for a moment to see if any one of them wanted to say something there and then, but they all understood it was an important matter and knew to listen in carefully. "Good. The vampires have discovered me, and they know about Peter. They don't know about Quinn yet, but it's only a matter of time. I want to first say this is my fault. They only came because of me, but after finding out about Peter, they can't let him live. To explain quickly, he is something called an illegal. Vampires do not have permission to create others without notifying their leader. Since Quinn created Peter without a leader's permission, Peter is considered illegal. Usually when we discover an illegal, they are executed on the spot. As for the one who created him, they are taken back to the Vampire Council to be judged for their crime. Now, I have no intention of turning Quinn into them. Ever since I got here, he has done so much for me, but they won't leave until I give them the vampire that turned Quinn. With that, I have a plan. Luckily, Peter knows the transformation skill. If we give him disguised as Quinn, that should be able to satisfy them. I will report back saying I have killed the illegal, while also giving them a fake Quinn. Here is where I need your help. There are a few problems with this. Everything needs to be done today. I have told them I would deal with everything. I will be breaking out Peter, and for that, I think, Logan, you will be the best to help me. The second thing might be an even bigger problem. I'm sure we all know if I told Quinn of this plan, he would never agree to sacrifice Peter for himself. Even when I spoke to him earlier, he still thinks there is a way to save Peter. The truth is, this might be the only way to save him. The humans will experiment on him to no end, but the vampires will at least give him a quick death. Giving Peter to them is not enough to fool them. We can smell our kind, and Peter himself is not a vampire, but a subclass of a vampire. If I handed Peter over, they will discover he is a fake in an instant." Out of his pocket, Fex placed the flask on the table and put it in front of Vorden. "During my time here, I have concluded that, Vorden, you are the closest to Quinn. Whatever it takes, you must fill up that flask with his blood, but he mustn't find out about this. I have a suggestion that I think only you could do, and that's to knock Quinn and force the blood from him. He is a curious one. If you try to come up with an excuse, there's a good chance he will follow you, and it will ruin the whole plan. By the time Quinn wakes up, we would have been gone." Fex had finished detailing everything to the others, and they couldn't quite believe it. Both Logan and Vorden had suspected something like this would happen one day. They just didn't expect it to happen in the middle of an event like this. The other thing was, they didn't even have time to prepare. They would have to act immediately. Vorden picked up the flask and placed it in his back pocket. "We have no choice. We have to do this," Vorden said. "But I have one question. Surely sooner or later they will find out that Peter is not the person they are looking for. What happens then? Will they come to look for Quinn again? And what will happen to you once they find out you tricked them?" The serious face on Fex had changed to quite a sad-looking one after hearing this question. It was almost as if he had prepared himself for something. "The vampires are careful ones. It will be a while before they send someone after Quinn. At least this will give him more time. Quinn is special. I know that he gets stronger by the day. As for your second question, that is not for you to worry about and for me to deal with." With everything said and done, and with no time to waste, the group split up and proceeded with the plan. In the middle of Fex's explanation, after hearing and learning that the matter had something to do with Quinn, a particular person had found out that he could be in trouble. In the dark back room of Vorden's mind, Syl had stood up and was interested in what they had to say. Most things seemed uninteresting to him, and with nothing happening so far that relied on Vorden using him, he had remained quiet. He listened carefully while standing by Vorden on his left side, and Rayton was on the right. The explanation had just finished, as Fex asked Vorden to gather Quinn's blood. "Well, of course, we're not going to agree to that, right?" Rayton asked. "Hey, I know I'm crazy and I'll fight anything, but do you remember what happened last time? He turned into that bald monster. Sorry, but I'm not fighting in this one." "Rayton, didn't you just say you would fight anything?" Vorden replied, annoyed. "Sorry, I refuse to fight anything that's that ugly with no plus side. At least when fighting a beast, we get a crystal out of it. A human? Well, that's just fun, but that..." After hearing what Rayton had to say, Vorden was concerned and was hesitant whether or not to agree with the plan. Quinn was strong. If it was the Quinn from a few months back, then maybe without Rayton's help and strong ability, he would be able to knock Quinn out and gather some blood. Right now, he would need at least 2 strong abilities to increase his chances. It wasn't just a question of winning such a fight, but being strong enough to overpower Quinn, to the point where he could win without having to badly hurt him. He could always try to find an excuse to ask about the blood, but he couldn't think of anything right now and needed a backup plan in case that didn't work. It looked like Fex's suggestion of beating and knocking him out was the best one. The question was whether he could do it without Rayton's help. "Say, we'll do it," Syl said all of a sudden. This response came as a surprise to Vorden. The whole reason they had gotten close with Quinn in the first place was due to the way Syl saw Quinn. "If we don't do this, the bad people will take Quinn away, right?" Syl asked. It seemed like he had understood more than he thought. Vorden felt bad for underestimating Syl. Maybe he was slowly getting better. His mind returned to what it once was. "Yes, you're right. If we do this, then the bad people won't take Quinn away." With Syl agreeing to help and fight Quinn just in case, they decided to take the job and get the flask. Vorden asked Layla to head back to her hotel room and prepare whatever she thought might help. In her room, there were still a few items she had from Pure that should be able to help block out the cameras around the place. The truth was that Vorden wanted Layla to leave him alone while he made some preparations of his own. He didn't expect her to have some useful things. If there was a chance he was going to fight Quinn, then he needed the strongest powers he could find, and he knew just the place to get them. Inside her hotel room, Layla went under her bed and pulled out what looked like a small metal box. On the front was a keypad, where she proceeded to input the code in her mind. Soon the small metal box was opened, revealing the black ball that was usually in there. This time, though, the black ball looked a little different than before, as a blue flashing light was blinking on the front. This indicated that there had been a message left on it. Placing the blinking black ball on her bed, she chose to ignore it. "No, I am no longer a part of Pure or that life." With her palm facing towards the ball, she started to concentrate. Slowly, components of the black ball were being pulled out piece by piece. They were gradually lifted away from the black ball, and eventually the ball stopped blinking. Inside the box, there were still a few more things inside. She quickly grabbed them and placed them in the pouch around her waist. They were special tools that she had been trained with her whole life, although she hadn't used them that much since it was her first mission and she hadn't been given any tasks. She quickly went to leave the room to meet up with Vorden at their designated spot, but before doing so, she turned around one more time and took a look at the black ball. As she closed the door, she muttered, "Goodbye, Agent 100. Most of the students were still outside enjoying the atmosphere, checking out the stalls and playing all the games. It was busier than the first day because the public had also been invited to check out the place as well. It wasn't too late, and everyone was filled with excitement. However, Vorden was not one of these people. He continuously looked around the area to see if he could find the person he was looking for. Eventually, on his way to his destination, his search had led him back to the block game Quinn had played the other day. There were more people stationed outside, and there was even a large queue. It seemed like the video had made the game go viral. While looking at the line, he could only see students making up the majority of the queue. There were some with high levels on their wristwatch, but he couldn't tell what their abilities were just by looking at them. It was a shame that Berg, one of the Sunshield Fire users, was taking part in the fighting tournament. The strongest students currently in the school were all underneath the arena and were in that event. This meant Vorden only had one choice, but had no idea where to find them. However, it looked like luck hadn't given up on him yet, since the girly-looking man who sat by them today was also by the gaming area. Wasn't he one of the 4 leaders, the leader of the Greylash family? Owen, if I remember correctly? Vorden thought. While Vorden was looking in his direction, the 2 pairs of eyes seemed to catch each other, and the man gave a wink. Owen had left the booth of the game he was watching and decided to walk over towards Vorden. Seeing this, Vorden strangely chose to walk away from the premises, up to the ledge where there were next to no people. "Oh, he wants me to follow him, huh? Well, this should be interesting," Owen thought. Owen decided to play along with whatever games the student had, remembering that both he and the other one had reacted strongly after witnessing the video. He had returned to the gaming area tonight, expecting the student to perhaps return, gaming for he was one in the video. The other students thought of the same thing, but it looked like that wouldn't be happening. All the other students seemed dull after witnessing the video. As soon as the man had come over without saying a word, Vorden had gone in for a quick and unsuspected grab. All he needed to do was get in a single touch, and the powers would be copied. It was truly unexpected. Owen had expected that the student only wanted to talk, but his reactions were far quicker than the boy's. Releasing that Vorden's intent was not to hurt him, he quickly thought that there must have been some other reason for this strange attack. There was no power behind this strike, and it was too sudden in front of too many people. Owen quickly opened up his gown, and from his waist he pulled out a metallic fan. He quickly spread it open and blocked Vorden's fingers from touching him. However, Vorden was persistent and tried again with his other hand, but that too was knocked away. Not knowing Vorden's true intentions, Owen stepped back and initiated a small spark in his right hand. It was out of sight for others to see, since his body was blocking most of it, plus he had purposely made it very small. It was a warning. If Vorden tried to strike again, he wouldn't hesitate to use his powers. I have no choice, Vorden thought. This is for Quinn. The look in Vorden's eyes suddenly changed, even being felt by Owen. He had never felt such a strong presence come from a student before. He thought that he was right to think those kids from before were interesting. Using the fan, he covered the bright smile on his face. Never before had a student made him feel this way. My name is Vorden Blade from the Blade family. Using my name, I request you to stand down, answer my request, and give me your hand. Upon hearing the words spoken by the student, he now knew it was no laughing matter. The smile he had before dropped in an instant, and as quick as the smile had dropped, so did Owen with his request and gave Vorden his hand. Owen wasn't very recognizable to the outside people. Unlike the other family leaders, no one knew what he looked like. Today was the first time the newly appointed head was revealed, and that was only found out to the people in the booth. Sure, there were some like Quinn and his group who had paid attention to who was sitting in those seats, but none knew about the situation. Looking at someone so young, they would have never suspected them of being a leader. The people around outside weren't even paying attention to such a thing that was happening off to the side. They were far too involved in their things, or the gaming center that was close by. After learning about Vorden's true name, he had no choice but gave up his hand. The excitement that was felt when following this student now turned into horror. Although his heart was beating rapidly and he was a little scared, there still was a little spark in the back of his mind. I wonder why he needs to borrow my power. His curiosity to find out new and exciting things had always been his downfall. He even felt that his current views were different from the head and those around him. Owen was always interested in the younger generation who was closer to his age. He wanted to know how they felt about the way things were currently run. However, if he was to try to get involved or intervene in a situation like this, it would have possibly been one of the most dangerous things to do. Thank you, Vorden said, letting go of Owen's hand. No matter how interested Owen was, now was not the time to get involved with such a dangerous individual. He took a few steps back and planned to get away, but seeing his actions, Vorden called out to him immediately. Wait, Vorden called out. I want you to take me to where the other leaders are. Hearing this came as a considerable shock to Owen. Was he planning to use their powers too? The Big Four leaders' powers were beyond a level 8 ability. It was to the point where it couldn't be measured. Looking at Vorden, it was clear he was a student, whoever he had trouble with or whoever he needed to deal with. Just his power alone should have been enough. Now the excitement was too much, and he had even forgotten to hide the grin on his face. Maybe the events won't be so boring after all. With no choice, Owen walked and Vorden followed behind. On the way, they quickly went to one of the stalls to purchase a change of clothing for Vorden. He too was now in a large white gown that was a little too big, as part of the back was dragging along the floor. Is this necessary? He asked. Of course, Owen chuckled as the two of them continued to walk. Eventually, they reached their destination. It was a hotel room that was slightly larger and fancier than the rest, Hotel Number 1. This was where all of the higher class members that were invited to the event were staying. The rest had to get a train out to other parts of the city and come in early in the morning. Before entering the building, the two of them stopped outside. Do you know how to use my powers? Owen asked. Not everything, but I should be able to do something, Vorden replied as he started to twirl his hand around. Particular elemental abilities were quite similar in use, but reacted differently when being used. An example of this was when gathering water. To gather water and wind, one did the same thing, but water would be a bit harder to control due to its weight and shape of it. When twirling his hand in a circular motion, he tried to imagine the ability as a water one. Suddenly following the palm of his hand, a stream of electricity would follow it. He continued to move his hands in a circular motion, and now a full circle of blue electrical light could be seen. Quick learner as expected, Owen said, impressed. The kids at our school would cry in horror if they found out you could produce something like that on your first try." Owen then opened up two of his fingers and created a connected spark, passing the blue lightning between his thumb to his finger. "This should do. There is no need to perform what you did before." With the quick lesson over, the two of them walked up to the front of the hotel lobby where the guards were stationed. Owen was allowed to pass, but Vorden was stopped. "That kid is with me. He is a member of the Greylash family," Owen said with a wink toward Vorden. He suddenly realized why they had the quick lesson before. Opening up his thumb and his index finger, he had presented to the guards the same trick that Owen had shown moments before. There was no better proof that one was part of the Greylash family, other than displaying it with their powers. Usually this wouldn't have been enough, but with one of the Big Four, who was also considered one of the leaders of the current United Earth Alliance. They allowed him to pass. The elevator was taken to one of the top floors, and when they arrived, there were only a few rooms with large doors. These doors all had different decorations on the outside. In the center of the double door going over the parting point was the engraving of the family's crest. No guards, Vorden noticed. This was upon the request of the four themselves. They preferred it this way. Secrecy was a big part of their power, and Vorden knew that better than anyone. Right now they were standing in front of what looked like a large shield with a flame on it. Owen knocked on the door and was quite pleased he would be interacting with Bernie once again. "Those blasted soldiers, I told them not to disturb me. I'm going to have to speak to Owen about this. This treatment is unacceptable." The ramblings of a deep-voiced man could be heard through the doors. It seemed like the man was trying to speak quietly, but he had one of those voices that would be carried and heard throughout no matter what. The doors flew open wide and fast, and in its place was a large, round-bellied man with messy red hair, the trait of the Sunshield family. The instant the doors opened, Bernie's ears started to produce steam at the sight of the man in front of him. "You," he pointed at Owen. "So it looks like you wanted that fight after all, to come to my room in the middle of the night." He had completely ignored the person standing next to him and continued to focus only on Owen. In case things got ugly, Owen had placed his hand on his metallic fan. Vorden now realized if he was planning to use such a weapon against one of the Big Four, it couldn't have been a regular fan, but a high-class beast weapon instead. "As much as I would like to teach you to not judge a book by its cover, I've come for reasons," Owen tried to explain, but it seemed like Bernie wasn't listening at all. Flames from both of his forearms were slowly starting to appear upward towards his elbow, and a red-hot tribal pattern was shown on his skin. This was something Vorden hadn't seen when he thought with Berg. Is it part of his soul weapon? Realizing this, there was a chance this fight could get serious, fast. Owen quickly stepped to the side and presented both of his hands at Vorden. "This man is part of the Blade family, and he has asked for our assistance." Hearing the name, Bernie's reaction had immediately changed, just like Owen's. The flames had died down, and the tribal tattoos that went up his arm disappeared as well. Bernie gave the person next to him one look, and knew what he wanted instantly, and presented his hand while looking away, making sure not to make eye contact. "If that's all you came here for, get out of here. I was just about to take a nice hot bath," Bernie said, but now with a lot less anger in his voice, making sure to not offend the person in front of him. Now with two of the strongest powers in the world, Vorden was confident he could deal with Quinn. There was no need for him to get the Greylash's power and inform more people that he was here. His power was to control beasts, and there weren't any around here. Besides, even if there were, it would be too difficult to move and would cause a huge uproar. Then there was only Jack left, the newest addition to the big families. Unlike the other families, it had no history and was only recently created. The others had been going on for generations, even before the war with the Dalki. If Vorden was to ask him for anything, he wasn't even sure he would comply. However, there was another reason. With this much power following through his body, if he was to meet Jack right now, there was a good chance he wouldn't hold back and burn him to a crisp. It might ignite a war, and that wasn't his decision to make. He wasn't the leader of the Blade family, and if they found out he was abusing their name like this, even he could get into trouble. "I don't have to tell you guys that I was never here," Vorden said, "but before I go, I need one more thing. Is there a place or spot I can use where no one will know if I'm using these powers?" Bernie huffed out a puff of hot air before answering. "There is. I often use it to cool down once in a while. They created the room with me in mind, and of course, there are no cameras. Even if they were, everything would have been burnt by now. It's an empty room with nothing inside, and the walls are soundproof. Whatever you're planning to do in there, nobody will be able to tell. It's a place only permitted to be used by us. It was something I had to fight hard for them to make." "Perfect," Vorden replied. The two leaders had scary thoughts in their minds about what possibly could Vorden need the room for, and why did he need the two of their powers, but they didn't ask and only told Vorden where to go. Down the hotel lobby, the two boys Fex and Logan were heading towards Logan's room. After finding out about the plan, Logan was happy to hear that his time hadn't been wasted. He informed Fex that plenty of things in his room might be of great use to them. The walk to Logan's room was a quiet one, though. The two boys were hardly left alone with each other, and their first meeting was quite an eventful one. Fex didn't hold any hard feelings about Logan blasting him across the room, but thought that Logan might have felt wrong about it. However, Logan hadn't even thought about the situation even once before. The reason for his silence was just because he wasn't much of a talker unless he wanted to be. When he had something to say, he would speak all out, explaining every little detail. But most of the time he wouldn't be speaking, spending all his time thinking about things inside his head. Still, Fex couldn't think of a better person who would be able to help him with his task. He had seen how helpful he was during the True Dream plan, and he needed his smarts. The two of them entered Logan's room, and Fex's eyes opened wide at what he could see. Unlike the other places, Logan seemed to be quite different from the rest. "Is all this stuff yours?" Fex asked, still looking around the room in amazement. "I know, it's a shame I couldn't bring more stuff with me, but at least I don't feel uncomfortable with all this around," Logan said as he proceeded to head to his desk. The room looked like it had been completely converted. Each student was given the same size room, and the layout of the rooms was the same. Yet Logan somehow, in the short time here, had managed to transform the whole place into a miniature version of his room back at the academy. The desk was now filled with a laptop that had multiple gadgets and wires attached to it. The room had several other gadgets and chests around and about in different room areas, and digital maps and other things were displayed on the wall. He then further realized that Logan had only been knocked out of the tournament and spent very little time in the room. There were so many questions that Fex wanted to ask, but there wasn't enough time. "I'm not sure if you knew, but if you didn't pick me to help you break Peter out from the underground arena, then I was going to volunteer anyway," Logan said as he pulled up a 3D model of the floor directly underneath the arena. "I wasn't too bothered about the event, I'm sure you know, but I was concerned about Peter. In case Quinn or the others changed their mind, I tried to find a way to help Peter escape. While trying to find a way from the dungeon, it was impossible for me as I had no clue what it looked like. But with the underground arena, I was able to explore and keep track of the guards and everyone's attention personally. I came up with a plan, but there was still a problem. Even if we could get Peter out, what do we do then? They would soon notice and prepare a search for him. We're in the middle of a military base 1, and we know where nothing is. With nowhere for him to go, breaking him out would be useless and would only further get us into trouble. It seems like my research will be put into use after all. I'm assuming you, or whoever was planning to take you, already has a plan to leave this place." Logan then proceeded to show and explain to Fex all the small details. Logan had kept track of where each camera was positioned and its range of motion. He even had the guard schedule planned in his head, the one standing by the events as well as the two that were always by Peter's side. The level of detail was incredible, and when looking around the room, he noticed there had been an immense amount of research that had been put into trying to get Peter out of the dungeon as well. "I guess he means a lot to you, a true friend, huh?" Fex said. Logan thought about this for a while. "I guess," Logan replied. "After meeting Quinn, I have made a few companions, but Peter was more than a friend. He was an assistant, and it would be hard for me to find an assistant as good as him." Fex was slightly confused by Logan's words. He couldn't imagine Peter being a good assistant, but soon realized, based on Logan's personality, Peter was probably the best one for him. Never asked any question, remained silent most of the time, never went to sleep, and would do as asked. In a way, Peter was like a robot. And the only thing Logan was surrounded by most of the time were tech-like things. A robot would be the perfect assistant. With the plan and all the details ready, Logan left the room, but not before erasing all the details off his computer. He then walked over to the corner of the room and pulled out a small metallic box. Once opening the package inside were 6 different masks that covered the bottom part of one's face. He then walked over and presented the masks to Fex. "What's this?" Fex asked. "Do you remember Quinn's mask? During the process, we went through a few prototypes. It was a waste to throw them away, so I decided to keep them and made some enhancements. The masks can communicate with each other as well as be used as a voice changer. It will be used to keep our identity hidden." Looking down at the mask, he could see there were indeed plenty of designs, and that's when he noticed there was one that looked a little like a bull. It suited him well, especially since he had Ham still. "I'll take this one." The two placed the masks in their back pocket as they left the hotel room one more time and headed for the elevators. Once inside, they headed down to the first floor and were patiently waiting in the lobby for the next part of their plan. This was important, as the timing had to be perfect. When the guards would change shifts, this was their moment to get Peter out. The two went over to a table that had several sofas placed around it. It was starting to get late now, so fewer and fewer people were beginning to pass through the hotel lobby area. Once again, the two of them seemed to be sitting in silence, and it was starting to drive Fex a little crazy. They still had a good 20 minutes before they had to make their move, and he was wondering if he could last that long without saying anything. However, surprisingly, Logan was the first one to speak to Fex. "I assume you know a lot of V's, yes? Originally being from there and all?" Logan asked. "V's?" Vex replied, then soon releasing what it stood for. "Oh, yeah, sorry. Yes, I know a lot. Why? Do you know any that seem to have an interest in computer systems of the sort? Or advanced in technology? Perhaps even obsessed?" Logan asked. After meeting both Fex and Quinn, he could tell there was a clear difference. While handing the mask over to Fex, Logan made sure to make contact, yet no message appeared like the one that had happened when he touched Quinn. This meant that the system seemed to be unique to Quinn. Logan was looking for answers to his questions and possibly thought there was a chance he could find out who created the book Quinn had been given. Whoever had made such a system was way beyond anything they currently had. "Honestly, the technology we, V's use is a little bit more advanced than what you have, but at the same time it feels old. It's kind of hard to explain. I guess V's are quite traditional in a sense, so some are against using technology to better their lives, but we have to rely on it in some cases. Because of this, I don't know anyone specifically who is interested in technology, apart from a few of the young ones like me," Fex replied. "Interesting. But then who created all your technological advancements if they are more advanced than what we currently have?" Logan asked. Fex started to laugh nervously as he had never really thought about these types of things before. He just took the stuff he had for granted without thinking much about it. "I'll be honest, I have no clue. But when you asked about obsessiveness, it does remind me of a story the others used to tell me. You see, just like your head generals of each military base, we also have leaders or council members. 13 to be precise, and number 10 was always known to be, well, a bit crazy. Although he wasn't obsessed with the technology, he was obsessed with magic. His powers were unique, even for vampires, and I heard some of the vampires' advancements were due to him. But honestly, other than that, I don't know much at all. I'm still young for a vampire, and this was all before my time." It was a long shot, but it was the only thing Logan could go off. Perhaps if he ever obtained more information about vampires in the future, he could look into this 10th council member more. Just then, they heard a beep from their watches, indicating it was time for them to move. As soon as the timer went off, a few little spiders fell to the ground from underneath Logan's sleeve. The two boys continued their fake conversation with hand gestures and such. "So, what's your favorite sandwich?" Fex asked, trying to make the conversation look a tad bit more realistic by asking a real question. However, Logan looked as if he was struggling to decide his answer. He placed his hand on his chin and looked up into a corner. I would probably have to say cheese and onion, but since my body doesn't deal with cheese that well, I guess if we were talking about favorites, then it would depend on my cravings at the time. Regarding how the question is phrased, the best sandwich differs. Do you mean the best tasting? Best one for your health? Or perhaps the best ingredients?" I guess you can tell me all three then?" Fex's tone had a nervous vibe to it, as he wasn't expecting a real answer back. The spiders had now fanned out, and once they had completed their tasks, they reported back to the server, namely Logan. In the middle of their intense conversation, Logan suddenly stopped and stood up. "Let's go." The underground arena was accessible from any hotel room. It was designed this way so when contestants were eliminated, they could easily rejoin their military base. This meant that each of the elevators was in some way linked. One would usually require a pass to go to the lower floors, but that wasn't a problem to worry about, not for Logan anyway. They continued walking through the lobby and headed towards the elevator area. Fex glanced at the camera in the corner and could see a spider falling from it before rejoining back up with Logan. Once the doors opened, they both stepped in. The cameras within and outside the elevators weren't able to capture their figures. The cameras were set to loop footage for 2 minutes, once the time was up. It would then begin showing the live feed. It was currently nighttime, and there were no other contestants that would be making their way from the underground up to the lobby. Once they were past these cameras, there would be no more problems since there were no other cameras in the underground section. Logan could assume this was due to the same reason why there weren't any cameras at the school. Many students would be practicing their abilities. Their families simply wouldn't allow them to spy and gather information by looking at what the students were doing. While in the elevator, the two of them placed both their masks over their face. "So far, everything's going well," Fex confidently commented. "Now, Vorden, Layla, it's all up to you." Without the blood, everything they were doing was pointless. Vorden told Layla to meet him outside of the number 1 military hall building. He even informed her that he found a place and everything was ready. All she needed to do now was bring Quinn over to the destination. Since he already told her of his plan beforehand, there was no need for her to use her tools. There would be no cameras inside when Quinn will enter the room with Vorden. Her job there was to be the lookout. Although only members from the Big Four could use the room, that didn't mean they wouldn't. However, there was still a slight chance that Mona Bree or Jack would try to use it. Bernie had informed Vorden that this was extremely unlikely. In all the years the place had been built, it was never used once by them. He reckoned that he was the only one to have ever used the place. She stood outside Quinn's door and took a deep breath before raising her hand to knock. It felt like the work she was doing now was more like the double agent type stuff, back when she was in Pure. These were the things that she had been trained to do. It seemed a little funny that she was still using it, despite already leaving them. "Okay, let's do this." Just as Layla was about to tap the door with her knuckles, it suddenly opened. "Layla, what are you doing here this late?" Quinn asked her. "But how?" She started asking questions in her mind. How did he know someone was by the door? "Oh, you don't need to worry. I could smell you were coming," Quinn responded. "Smell?" These words stung her a bit. She was tempted to lift her arms to see if she did smell that bad. Upon seeing that she felt somehow insulted, Quinn realized that what he said just now could have been easily misinterpreted. "No, I didn't mean that you smell. I meant, like, you smell great," he said while blushing. "You know, because of my sensitive nose and all." The both of them left the room and headed outside towards the military base. Once Layla said that she wanted to walk for a bit and that she had something important to say. Quinn thought that he already knew what the subject would be. It had to be about Fex's confession. As the two of them were walking, they felt a little awkward because of their previous conversation at the door. Quinn didn't know what to say to make it up to her. While pondering over this matter, Quinn had fallen back a little and was walking behind Layla. He noticed that he was staring at her from behind a lot more than usual. Due to this, he started to think back about what Fex said, about how he wanted to inform him beforehand, since he assumed that something was going on between the two of them. And now, Layla asked to have a private conversation with him as well. No, it can't be. Does Layla like me? When she asked him to turn her, did she mean something else by it? His mind couldn't help but have these kinds of thoughts. If Layla likes me, and Fex likes her, then that means... Oh no, I'm in a love triangle. If she's here to confess to me, then what do I say? I can't say yes to her. I can't do this to Fex. While his mind wandered about in this confused and crazy contemplation, the both of them eventually arrived outside a small building behind the hotel. Although it was very plain-looking, it was also large at the same time. This reminded Quinn of the storage room where he first found the shadow ability. He wondered why Layla chose this place to converse with him. He could only guess it was due to it being away from everyone else. Layla then turned around and faced him. It looked as if she wanted to say something, but was also struggling with how to say it. "I know what you want to talk about," Quinn decided to initiate the discussion. He didn't want the situation to be more awkward than it already was. "This is about Fex, isn't it?" "How does he know?" She was surprised once again. Feeling a bit contemplated, she started to speak. "Look, Quinn, you don't need to say any more." However, Quinn suddenly interrupted her. "Quinn, Vorden is waiting for you inside," she blurted out before things got out of hand. "Wait, Vorden? How is he involved in all this?" Quinn was now truly confused about what was going on. "Look, I just felt bad about lying, saying that I needed to speak to you. The truth is, Vorden said that he wanted to talk to you. He's inside waiting." Layla then walked over to the metallic-looking doors and inputted the code that Vorden told her. It was nearly the same storage room back on the Red Portal planet. At first, Quinn moved to the entrance, but he stopped just outside of it. Could he trust Layla? Because he didn't know what was going on, Quinn was starting to think that this was possibly a trap set up by Pure. Perhaps Layla was planning to double-cross him and was still working with them. "Is Vorden inside here?" Quinn turned around and asked while looking at her. At that moment, a hand suddenly pulled him from behind. "Just get in here, you—" Vorden's voice suddenly piped up. He shuffled both him and Quinn inside as the door shut close. When the motion sensor lights automatically turned on, they could both see that they were in a large, plain, white room. There were no windows around. There was nothing except the door they just entered from. When Quinn turned around and saw Vorden, his worries settled down, since it seemed like Layla was telling the truth. The look on Vorden's face did not greet a friend, but instead it was of concern. In just an instant, his expression changed. Vorden now had the friendliest smile that Quinn had ever seen. "Hey? Vorden, are you okay?" Quinn couldn't help but ask. "Vorden?" he responded, while tilting his head to the side and placing his finger on his lips. "No, I'm not Vorden. Did you forget my name?" he responded with a question. This strange reaction made Vorden look almost like a handsome blonde-haired puppy. "What's going on?" Quinn thought. He was quite baffled. It seemed like all of his friends were acting strange recently. "Aren't I meant to be the weird one in our group?" "Don't you remember? We met before. I'm Syl." There could be two outcomes of the situation with Vorden and Quinn. In Vorden's head, the best outcome would be for him to ask Quinn to put his blood in the flask kindly. If Quinn were to question why, he would simply tell him to trust him, and he would inform him about the details tomorrow. However, knowing Quinn, he would try to get involved in some way or another. On top of that, he would try following him. If the first part of the plan worked, then Vorden would hand the flask to Layla while keeping an eye on Quinn, making sure he didn't leave the room until everything was done. Hopefully this would all lead to avoiding him fighting with Quinn. Then again, Vorden was someone who always needed to prepare himself for all of the possible scenarios. There was a good chance that when asking for his blood, Quinn wouldn't do so without asking why, leading him to forcefully take the blood. In both cases, these would lead to a fight. If this was to happen, Vorden wanted the fight to be over as quickly as possible, which meant he would need to utilize both of his abilities. The second Vorden had pushed Quinn into the room. He had made the switch with Syl, so if anything were to happen, they would be ready. "Okay, so remember what we've planned?" Vorden asked, standing right next to him. Syl was currently in the seat, and Rayton was standing a little bit further away from them with a smile. "If you think for a second that this will go the way you expect it to go, then you're crazy," Rayton said out loud with a little chuckle, waiting for disaster to strike. "Repeat after me. I need you to trust me, Quinn, and I need you to do me a favor. I don't want you to ask why, but I need some of your blood," said Vorden. However, the words were simply ignored as Syl decided to do his own thing. "But I'm not Vorden. Did you forget my name? I'm Syl," he said outward, looking at Quinn. Hearing Vorden speak, it seemed a little strange to Quinn. Although it sounded like him, at the same time it didn't. The emphasis on certain words, as well as the fluctuations in his voice, were just a tad off. Not just that, but the way he was currently standing. Everything just felt wrong, and now he was saying his name was Syl? "What are you doing, Syl?" Vorden could not help but shout. "He can't find out about you." Syl turned his head and looked at Vorden behind him before responding. "Shut up. I can do what I want. It's my body anyway." Vorden gulped as he took a step back. There was nothing he could do when Syl got like this, so he decided to just wait and see the outcome. "It's been a while since we've last met," Syl giggled. "Let me ask you something. Are we friends?" There was a brief pause as Quinn was trying to figure out just what was going on. "Of course we are, Vorden," Quinn replied. Syl shook his head rapidly back and forth as he peculiarly stomped his feet. At the same time, flames from his feet rose into the air before dissipating. "No," he yelled. "Not Vorden. I already told you. I'm Syl." Seeing a fire ability appear all of a sudden made Quinn take a few steps back. He knew this power belonged to one of the big four, so he could not help but wonder why Vorden currently had it. Something strange was happening here. Syl? Why does Vorden keep referring to himself as Syl? While thinking of this, Quinn started to think about the possibilities. Did Pure get to him? Or has someone with a mind control ability taken over Vorden's body? Perhaps it might have even been a vampire. He didn't fully understand the capabilities of the vampires, so he thought this might have been their way to try and get rid of him once they found out. Whatever the case was, it was clear that the person in front of him right now wasn't the Vorden he knew. "Why are you stepping back?" Syl said as he reached out his hand. "Don't be scared. Why are you scared?" Suddenly, tears started to flow from his eyes. They ran down his cheek before trickling to the ground. "Don't be scared. Don't be scared," he continued to mumble as he looked at Quinn. "Please don't be scared, Kaser. I promise I will never hurt you again." Although the words spoken were quiet, with Quinn's hearing he could hear every word. He heard him speak of a name which he did not know of. "Please, Syl," Vorden yelled, trying one more time to reach out to him. He knew that if this went on, perhaps Quinn would be seriously hurt. The goal was only to get his blood and nothing more. "Quinn is not Kaser. We need him. We are here to help him, right? You don't want him to go, so just ask for the blood." Making sure to not be too pushy, this was all that he could do while he silently prayed. The words had gotten through to him, as Syl saw the worried look on his face. He grabbed his hand and placed it on his chest, while wiping his tears away with the other. "He's right. You are not Kaser." Looking up, he gave a smile. "Please remember my name next time. It's Syl. Since we're friends, I need to ask you for a favor." Syl then went to the side and pulled out the metallic flask that had been given to him by Fex. "I need you to fill this up with your blood." Looking at the flask, Quinn noticed it in an instant. That was because it was the same one that he had been gifted with by Fex. This was the deciding factor in his mind. The vampires must have gotten to Vorden. Somehow they had found out. It was probably the reason why Fex had been acting strangely before. He now felt stupid for believing such an obvious lie. Did he betray me? Quinn pondered. Perhaps when he asked Quinn to leave that day, the vampires came and surrounded his friends. After that, they forced them to complete this task. He didn't know why they needed his blood, but he still had a lot to learn about vampires in the first place. Then again, there was the possibility that they couldn't kill him outright, due to him being one of the leaders. Still, whatever the case was, Quinn wasn't going to go down without a fight. "I'm sorry I can't," Quinn replied. "And Vorden, I don't know how, but I promise I'll save you." With nothing left to say, Quinn activated his shadow quip ability. Dark shadows quickly covered his arms and legs, as well as his new chest piece in the center. He then quickly charged forward and left the clouds of shadows behind, but right now, his body was all of his equipment. "I know how strong you are, Vorden, hence the reason why I can't go easy on you." "Quick, Syl, take him out now!" Vorden shouted. Syl quickly curled up, bringing his arms and head towards his chest. He then gathered the power of the fire energy around the center. Soon, little flames could be seen on top of all his clothing. Slowly, they started to burn away even in the fire-resistant school uniform. The firepower was too strong. As Quinn started to get closer, he could sense something was up. "Shadow control!" Lifting the shadow in front of him, he made sure to have it ready, prepared as a shield for whatever was to come. Once Vorden attacked, that's when Quinn would strike using his blood abilities. At the moment, he still hadn't used his blood bank, or his flask, so his HP was low. This was another reason for him wanting to finish off the fight fast. Enough time had passed, and Syl was ready. He suddenly extended his hands and head outward like a spring, causing a dome of fire to be released outward, heading in all directions. There was nothing Quinn could do but brace himself with his shadow. As the outer edge of the fire dome grew close, it had finally hit his shadow. As soon as the fire had touched Quinn's shadow, it had disappeared in an instant, consuming all of his MC cells. This could have only meant one thing. The attack was just too powerful. Whose fire ability did he copy? Quinn thought. However, the shadow was able to cause a small crack in the dome, allowing him to pass through and come out of the attack unharmed. But now, with no more MC cells, he could no longer rely on his shadow ability, only leaving him with the blood abilities. "It seems I have no choice. I have to use my blood bank. I'll just curb my addiction next time." But before he could even do that, a blue stream of light flashed before his eyes, and Syl, who was on the other side of the room, was now directly in front of him. "Go to sleep, my dear Quinn," Syl said as he placed his hand on top of Quinn's head and unleashed a fury of electricity through his body. His body shook rapidly back and forth as the electricity passed through. He gritted his teeth, trying to take the pain, but it was too much for him as his vision slowly faded to black. As Syl let go of Quinn's head, he allowed his body to drop to the floor.
Hi, Quinn here. Wondering what happens next? If you want to jump the queue and unleash all episodes, click on the link here and install the Pocket FM app.